But the reality is that we can use creative tools to do neat stuff. And I know I talked about that a little bit. Excuse me here. So I'll talk about digital tools in a second. What I do want to touch on is safety, because safety is really important for our mission settings, and doing it in the digital space requires some different considerations. So as you think about, embrace yourselves, adapting and updating your church safe conduct policies, painful process. These are some things you should be thinking about: health and safety, volunteer screening and training, how to appropriately supervise, how do we do accommodations if perhaps we're doing some combination of in-person and digital engagement, because there are groups that are doing hybrid programs where in addition to our program, they're working in one or two local service projects where their groups gather together. How do we think about transportation? How do we do that safely in this moment? How do we think about dietary needs for folks that are getting together? How do we think about special needs and all that that entails? How do we think about our rules about social media and engagement online? And then how are we dealing with abuse reporting? So all those are things to think about in the context of mission and perhaps need rethinking in the context of virtual missions. Digital fluency. I think it's important for those of us who are in youth ministry to be fluent in the tools that are available to make these ministries really powerful and effective today. And many of our churches are full of Luddites. That's a reality. We are not comfortable with using these tools. We don't know where to resource ourselves to learn how to use them. And the reality is, even once we use them and we feel good about them, our congregations may not. But these are important to effectively doing ministry in this time. And so even if it's tough to learn, I think it's really important to make the time to do it. And that may involve conversations in your local setting about additional training and resourcing. But this is what's going to be really helpful to you as you think about, how do I engage people virtually, whether it's in mission work or worship or whatever it is. And so for those things, I think please make yourselves familiar with cloud-based services, including administrative functions like Microsoft Office 365, the G Suite, cloud-based storage. All that is so important for doing digital work. Please make yourself familiar with the communications tools that will make you professional and effective in this realm. Email integrations using things like Constant Contact and MailChimp. Many of our churches, at least in the UCC, use church windows, which does allow you to do some kind of blast emails. It's not necessarily a great tool for highly professional email blasts and communications. And so you may want to think about how you can use church windows in integration with other pieces. Mass texting. If you have a large group of folks, people want to be engaged by text right now, especially young people, but it is incredibly time consuming to send text to 50 different kids. So how do you use some of the tools that are available, like Slick Text and Easy Texting, to streamline your communications? Our presentation software. How are we presenting some of the things that we're doing with our young people, and how can we use creative tools to do this in an engaging way? And so I actually want to stop sharing our presentation here, and I want to try out a couple of these presentation tools, because some of these other things, using the G Suite or whatever, are fairly self-explanatory. But I want to just give you a little presentation of what we can do with presentation tools. So I'm going to screen share here, and give me just one moment. I mentioned before Google Earth. So Google Earth is a neat tool that allows us to satellite view the world and zoom right in. This is a tool we use with all of our virtual mission trips. This particular one, again, focused on urban poverty, and it allows folks, when we can't travel, to get a close-up view on what poverty looks like, because seeing something is so powerful. And so when we talk about suburban churches in Connecticut, they may have a tough time visualizing, what does a housing crisis look like in the Bay Area of California? But we can put them literally on the streets to see, this is a homeless encampment on the streets of Oakland. This is what homelessness truly looks like, right? It is not a set of government handouts. It is not a life of welfare queens or other sorts of stereotypes that exist out there. It's hard, right? And the reality of seeing that can be truly shocking to some people. And it's also a neat tool to be able to show a variety of realities about poverty. So in this case, We're looking at housing. We're also looking at the disaster of Hurricane Katrina and how that continues to be meaningful in New Orleans 15 years later. You can see all the empty housing lots. Right? This is shocking for people to see. And when we can use these presentation tools, it allows us to, I think, do this work more effectively. Redlining. Redlining is a really tough conceptual thing for kids to understand. Like, wait, some people were excluded. Here's a picture. This was a historically Black neighborhood in Miami, and they put a highway interchange right in the middle of it. That's a powerful visual that you can use to explain how redlining works. These neighborhoods where Black families were successful and Hispanic families were successful were turned into infrastructure projects and communities were divided. So that brings in racism, which is a really important topic to be talking about with our youth groups today, but that's probably a topic for a different seminar. I also want to share with you another presentation tool, and that's Mentee. And for a moment here, I want to engage with you and be a little bit interactive. So Mentee is a tool that allows us to display a screen, and some of you may already be familiar with this, and collect some group input. And I want to do that with you now. And the way we use Mentee is to open up a new window in your web browser, or you can use a mobile device and go to mentee.com. That's MENTI.com. Once you're on mentee.com, you're going to be prompted for a user code. And you can find that user code right here at the top of the screen. That's 92 34 93 0. In this case, I've created a set of 3 slides, and I wanted to show you some of the presentation methods you can use and how they might be meaningful in your ministry. So I'm going to maybe give us a minute here. I'm going to continue to monologue to you, but I hope you'll go to mentee.com and use this code 92 34 93 0 and answer these questions along with me, because I think the actual reality of doing this could be kind of neat and powerful. And so you'll see on this, we've set it up for multiple answers, multiple short answers. And so you can answer the question, on a day off from ministry, how do you spend your time? And as people answer this, those answers will start to appear here on our screen. You can see some of the ways that people are spending their time. Lying in bed watching Netflix. Amen, brother or sister. So this is kind of a fun question that I asked, but some of the places I've used this in ministry are things like confirmation. So when we're teaching confirmation online, we put up a question here. What are some of the things that Jesus did? And we're working with 13 and 14-year-olds who have some conception of Jesus. And so we get all their answers here, and then we talk about those. Some of the things we do on our day off from ministry. We can also create word clouds. And so on your screen with Mentee, you'll now see a new question presented, a new opportunity. This is another thing we've used for prayers, for example. So your answers will get combined into a single word cloud. And in word clouds, the more times a particular answer is given, the larger it will appear in the word cloud. So as folks continue to write in, you'll start to see more words appear in this word cloud. And apparently we're really informative today. And so like I said, one place I've used this is with closing prayers with youth groups. What are the things we're praying for today? And then put on a little music and leave this open for a minute or two and let folks share the things that they're thinking about. And then end with a little closing prayer. The last type of, there are actually lots of types, but I've just created a 3-slide thing here for you today because we don't want to spend all day learning about Mentee. But the last presentation slide that I have for you today is a voting tool. So if I was to ask a youth group, all right, we want to do a virtual mission trip. What are the topics you're interested in? You can do something like this for polling purposes. So are you interested in learning about refugees, immigrants, and migrant workers, caring for creation, ending urban poverty, ending rural poverty? The way we use these tools can be really meaningful in collecting information, and they're certainly not exclusive to our youth groups. We can use these tools within our wider congregation for a lot of different kind of capacities.